Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Bindi.
Very warm welcome. Bindi?
Thank you.
Bindi has kindly stepped up while Barjo is at this year's E3, so you better tell us your E-resume.
Well, look, it's a huge honour for me to fill in for Barjo. I've always adored video games. One of my fondest childhood memories was of exploring the underworld in Ultima 5. And my mother's love came a distant second.
You may stay. Coming up on the show this week, there's only one game that made you sit on a toilet to save, and that's No More Heroes, and now it gets a sequel called Desperate Struggle. And we may have just found the game that breaks the games from movies stink rule. Toy Story 3 is actually quite playable.
I get to indulge my love of a certain developer's games in a backwards compatible about Rare.
Well, first, can you guess the game for this week? Get the hell away! What is this thing? So, Bindi, would you like to read the news this week?
Not really, no, but under my contract I have to.
Good game.
Things are on the up and up at Level 5 Studios.
Is that your famous intuition acting up again, Professor?
The company that brought us the Professor Layton puzzle games has announced major expansion plans. Level 5 will be opening a development studio in LA this September and also plans to set up shop in Europe next year.
Let's see if this works.
The government of South Korea has launched a $10 million program to fight internet addiction. The authorities in Seoul will be opening counselling centres, game addiction clinics, and funding a nationwide education campaign to warn against the dangers of excessive gaming. The Korea Computer Life Institute estimates that 3 out of 10 Korean adults suffer from an internet addiction. Masaya Matsura, the creator of Parappa the Rapper, is making a game for charity. Matsura-san's development studio, Nana Onsha, is working on the new iPhone rhythm action game for free. The game is called Winter. Winter will be released by the non-profit publisher One Big Game and will be the outfit's second release, its first being Chime from SingStar developer Zoe Mode. One Big Game raised money for causes such as Save the Children and the Starlight Children's Foundation. The free-to-play MMO revolution continues with announcements from 2 different publishers that soon they'll be launching free versions of their games in the West. While currently supported by a subscription model, The Lord of the Rings Online will be going free-to-play this spring, allowing anyone to play up to the level cap at no charge. Gamers will have the option of accessing extra premium content via micropayments or by paying a subscription fee for VIP access. Likewise, after a successful tour of duty in Korea and China, the MMO Company of Heroes Online will launch in English-speaking territories by the end of the year. Oh, it's exciting.
Good game.
Came here to fight.
Magnificent! Trust the causeless king.
I see the rumors were true.
I don't know why that guy has a Scottish accent either, but the thoroughly bizarre sequel to No More Heroes has arrived from developer Grasshopper Manufacture. Don't panic if you didn't play the original, neither did I.
Neither did I.
I did.
You stay out of it, Barjo, it's my one episode, No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle, is as eccentric a game as you would expect from a designer who uses a number for his surname.
The protagonist in this mishmash of Japanese and American comic book culture is top-ranking assassin Travis Touchdown. Amidst the stylized cutscenes and haphazard plot, it's hard to understand the story here, but from what I gather, Travis has returned home only to find that his assassin's rank has dropped from 1 back to 51.
But I already fought my way to number 1 before. Shouldn't I get a special fast track to the title fight?
No, but you will get a special prize.
Shut up.
Whoops. Looks like Travis has to murder the top 50 assassins to regain his place at the top once more.
What drives Travis to embark on this rampage? Well, we all know how irritated we get when our best friend's severed head is thrown through our motel window.
It's inconvenient, really.
You know, you've got to have housekeeping come in and remove it.
In fact, the whole story is enjoyably preposterous. You're taken on bizarre twists and turns and unexpected side trips into random anime worlds. And there's a mysterious narrative arc that keeps taking us back to a sultry woman in some kind of naughty chat room.
What would you like me to do?
None of it makes a great deal of sense, but you have to credit Grasshopper for the sheer imagination.
Yeah, I mean, one downside is they've drenched the entire story in this postmodern self-awareness.
How about you fill us in on everything that's happened since the last game? We're not going to be satisfied until you do, right?
That's all very clever, Clogs, but why not take the effort to write an engaging plot instead of fob us off with these knowing winks?
Another area where the story is let down is it's peppered with pubescent perving. I think they've intended it to be funny, but they haven't written or directed it with any kind of wit or charm, so I end up just feeling childish watching it. Well, one area where the humour does work is in the over-the-top violence. Geysers of cartoon blood will have you smiling, and it's so silly it couldn't even be objected to by grumpy game-banning politicians.
And some of the deliberately lame wisecracks are funny too.
When you see your bro in hell, tell him he's still a douche!
It's also the only game series on Earth where you save by going to the toilet.
Before you start your desperate struggling, you should drop a nice save.
The developer seems inordinately proud of this satirical conceit, even making it the image that greets you every time you boot up the game.
Now, to the gameplay itself. Desperate struggle is anchored in your Grand Theft Auto-style motel room. From here, you can access the vast open city of Sand to Destroy. Sorry, did I say vast open city? I meant small restrictive menu.
The small restrictive menu offers up two main types of challenge. One is the so-called ranking fights, your primary missions. In these, you run around carving up goons using the Wii controllers to execute swordplay and wrestling maneuvers.
The number of attack moves you have is quite limited. There are basically only 4, and it really doesn't matter which ones you use at any given time. So, for me, the combat feels like a random exercise of flicking and button pressing, and it's just not that fun.
Yeah, and what's more, you're often fighting blind. It's not as if there's a control stick dedicated to moving the camera. All you can really do is press C for a complete camera reset. And this makes for some frustrating battles whenever the enemies do something like move, as they tend to do in games.
And sometimes you can't see where you're being attacked from, which leads to some pretty joyless knockdowns from which you can't even recover.
In fact, the combat mechanics are so annoying, I was actually sick to death of them before the first fight of the entire game was over. I mean, usually a large number of levels is a real selling point for a game. It's like, oh, this game's amazing, it's 50 levels, that's fantastic, you know, but all I could think was, like, please don't make me do this 50 times.
Yeah, well, luckily you only have to beat 15 bosses to win, which may seem a bit half-assed on the developers' part, considering their initial promise of 50, but, you know, considering what a drag these fights are, it's actually quite a mercy.
After this, I'm gonna touch you down.
Sometimes there is a form change to keep us interested. For instance, one boss fight is done as jumping mechs, but the gameplay's so clunky you'll just want to jump out the window.
But later on you can play as other characters with different moves, though.
You can, but the problem is, even with a new jumping ability, it's still a bit of a shambles. And again, where the heck has the boss gone?
I'm not going to go easy.
Well, at least there's a sense of progress, though. You can unlock different combo moves by collecting magazines, or you can buy trendy threads to customise Travis. There's no online, though, so you won't get to show them off to anyone.
Aside from the ranking fights, the other main challenge is the mini-games. For reasons unknown, most of them are deliberately designed to look and play like 8-bit games made in the mid-1980s.
I mean, some of these are genuinely fun in retro spirit, like Bug Out, but others are just dreary and annoying, like the one where you have to hold down A to cook a steak, or lay a pipe, which is a crude rendition of a plumbing game, and these were executed way better in BioShock, and we hated those.
I know, it's like the worst bit in BioShock, done worse.
Unforgivable, though, is the 8-bit gym workout, which you have to do to increase your stats. Here, you just press 2 alternating buttons to run on a treadmill.
Now, I mean, you would think that a video game gym would be more fun than a real gym. Au contraire, I would sooner spend 6 hours working an actual grinder than 1 minute of this. I mean, it's a wonderful workout for those who miss summer games on the Commodore 64, but I mean, come on, Grasshopper, we didn't go and buy state-of-the-art motion controllers just to have you make us use 2 alternating buttons a lot.
Yeah, and what's worse is every time you stuff up, you have to sit through the same uninspired conversation with a pink leotard-wearing ex-wrestler before you can try again.
8-bit retro is all very nostalgic, but there's nothing in the game's premise to justify using it. I mean, maybe they're being cool, or maybe they're having a dig at old games. There's no clear concept.
Yeah, and if I have to see blocky old graphics and minigames, I at least expect the main game to look like it was produced today.
You would think so, but in No More Heroes 2, even the principal graphics are butt ugly, and you feel like you're flicking between 1985 and 1995.
Yeah, not a great decade to be stuck in.
Everybody deals with grief differently, right? Some people fuck at funerals. I cut off heads.
The game's subtitle says it, desperate struggle. That's what it sometimes feels like to play through this troubled experience. It's bravely different, it's out there, it has a sense of humour. For these things, I give it 57 points out of 10. Sadly, I have to subtract 52 points for it being ugly, shoddy and boring. And that's a total of 5 rubber chickens out of 10.
Yeah, look, it's definitely an unusual game, and I know the first one had a really strong cult following, and this one probably will too, but I really didn't enjoy it. It's 5.5 out of 10 rubber chickens from me. I'm just glad none of the stuff from this game has to happen in real life.
My pile of shame. Well, that would have to be Grim Fandango.
Intimidating me, but I'm your friend.
Never finished it because I got to one part and got stuck. And when I went back to it years later, I looked at it and it wasn't the game that I remember.
He truly gave his body to the cause.
And it's the one game that I really should have finished.
In the bleak days of Britain in 1982, 2 brothers, Chris and Tim Stamper, formed a games company under the name Ultimate Play the Game. While their grasp of English grammar was far from perfect, the Stamper brothers had started a company that would go on to be one of the most prolific and beloved in the entire history of gaming. 3 years later, they sold the Ultimate Play the Game name, presumably to somebody illiterate, and began to develop for the Nintendo Entertainment System under a new name, Rare. Snappy, memorable, not missing any punctuation marks, and with the name change, the classics came rolling out. Ooh, but before we get to them. In October 1990, Rare released A Nightmare on Elm Street, a platform horror game that cast players as hapless Elm Street teens, desperately searching the houses of the famous neighbourhood in the hope of finding Johnny Depp in one of the bedrooms. No, not really. Players were actually looking for the bones of Freddy Krueger, and they did this by fighting snakes and spiders in the so-called real world. Instead of a health bar, players had a sleep meter, the depletion of which would send them into the dream world. Once there, an invisible timer would count down to the appearance of Freddy himself for a nightmarish boss battle. Around the same time, Nintendo took the world by storm with their revolutionary new game controller, the Power Glove. Despite a lukewarm reception when the glove was modelled on the cover of Vogue, developers rushed out over 2,000 games designed specifically to utilise the sexy new controller. I'm sorry, did I say 2,000 games? My mistake. I meant 2. Of the 2 Power Glove games released, Rare's Super Glove Ball was by far the less dreadful. Players controlled a paddle-like ship, deflecting energy balls into walls to make bricks disappear. In the end, it wasn't the bricks that disappeared, but the glove. 1990 was also the year Rare gave gamers around the world the riotous fun of spinning a giant wheel while watching letters being turned on a big board. Now, not every Rare game is a household name like those mega hits, so out of curiosity, let's examine some of their lesser-known releases, obscure little games like Donkey Kong Country. It was the first 16-bit Super Nintendo game to use advanced computer modelling, a technique that allowed the rendering of sprites, allowing for some extremely detailed graphics. Like all gaming gorillas before them, the heroes of DK Country had a special affinity for barrels, but breaking with tradition this time, they also displayed a keen interest in mine carts and stomping on crocodiles. It was a mark of huge trust in Rare that Nintendo allowed them to handle their flagship characters. Nintendo aren't happy for just any idiot to do so, as my Chaser colleague discovered when visiting the cheerful Nintendo HQ in Japan.
Hey mate, stay out of it, it's personal. I've got a bone to pick with you. Why are you trying to assassinate me with Italian plumbers? Hey, why? What's going on? I'm just minding my own business at the top of a construction site with Princess Peach kicking back and you guys try to kill me. What have I ever done to you? What? No. Fine, let's do this the old-fashioned way then. Oh, you're so strong! That usually works!
After blitzing 2D, Rare tackled platforming in the third dimension, when the evil witch Gruntilda asked her magic mirror who is the fairest of them all. She was none too pleased with the answer. But instead of buying a more polite magic mirror or getting cosmetic surgery, Gruntilda kidnapped a local bear named Tootie. This naturally meant that the kidnappee's brother Banjo and Banjo's bird sidekick Kazooie had to roam the lands collecting jiggies and speaking in a language that reminded me of my parents bickering. Another 3D triumph was Donkey Kong 64, where Rare made us fall in love with them by incorporating an exact replica of their first ever game, Jetpack, complete with its ZX Spectrum colour bleed. Leap to 1997, Rare took a little-known license and created a first-person shooter with some surprising results. GoldenEye 007 was something of a sleeper hit. It was based on the 17th film in a niche British spy series. The game deserves recognition thanks to its disparate but well-balanced elements, including stealth, puzzle solving, and that staple of shooters, shooting. Although added as an afterthought, and mostly the work of just one guy, Steve Ellis, the multiplayer component of GoldenEye featured innovative controls, excellent game balance, and a fantastic range of characters. Rare's spiritual successor to GoldenEye was Perfect Dark, in which players took the role of super spy Joanna Dark, protecting us from terrorists and rogue world powers with the help of some nifty spy gadgets, nerves of steel, and a rather dangerously designed laptop.
What? You...
Very professionally done, my dear. But there's no time to waste. You must leave immediately.
Several Rare classics have recently been re-released in high definition. With any luck, an HD port of Wheel of Fortune will be announced in the near future.
Good game!
Runaway train! The orphans!
Years ago, Woody, Buzz and the gang made cinema history for being the first ever entirely computer-generated film. I'm talking, of course, about Toy Story. With its feel-good plot and laugh-out-loud moments, it forever changed the art of animation and had a lasting legacy on the games industry.
But while Toy Story and Toy Story 2 as films may have taken us to infinity and beyond, the corresponding games were utterly dreadful. And now, with the release of the latest movie, unexpectedly titled Toy Story 3, comes the next game, and heck, I thought it wasn't half bad.
Yeah, I'd say it's as close as you can get to fully enveloping yourself in the Toy Story world without really having to use your imagination. It's been a decade since the last Toy Story game was released, and video game technology has evolved to a point where we see the real-time graphics in this game almost reach the quality of that first film.
The game has two modes of gameplay, story and toy box.
The story mode incorporates 7 missions from the latest film, and it's pretty basic platforming stuff. You'll be doing a lot of jumping.
And some climbing, scrambling, riding rails, and throwing. But yeah, a lot of jumping.
Missions will have you playing as either Buzz or Woody, and there's a few that mix it up a bit and let you control 3 characters where you'll have to use their special moves to complete each level.
Nice touch time, you can actually play the Buzz the Lightyear video game from the second film, that game that Rex is playing at the start. But why on earth didn't they break it into chapters or something? I mean, there's heaps of fun to be had in Zurg's lair.
So, we meet again, Buzz Lightyear, for the last time.
But navigating through those millions of platforms of floating rocks to get there is an exercise in tedium, not fun.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think I came across that in quite a few of the missions. You know, it's so frustrating when developers think that you'll enjoy good bits of their level design so much more when you've had to work for it. I hate having to play and then replay through boring bits of level. It's just so frustrating.
They have done a good job with the characters though, haven't they?
Yeah, it's always fun to see Woody run around with his arms flailing or Buzz move with the weight of a plastic toy. But how did you find the difficulty, Bindi?
Well, dynamic difficulty strikes again. It's most obvious when you're doing a lot of jumping, right? You die, and then the next time around, there's suddenly more solid ground for you to leap on. It's magic! Or, just when you think you're doing really well, there's more baddies. I actually got a bit of a case of gamer's paranoia here, Hex. I actually couldn't work out after a while. If I died more than, say, 10 times, I didn't know if I was getting through the level in the end because I'd played it so many times that I'd become brilliant, or if the game was just going soft on me.
Me too. I couldn't decide if I just generally sucked at jumping or if it was the game's fault. Game's fault. The controls were definitely muddy and slow to respond, especially in areas where the developers have predefined jump points. I also found depth perception issues with jumping. Sure, you get used to it, but you never quite know if you'll make a platform or not. Wall jumps can be just as finicky, ending in many respawns.
Now, let's talk about the really good stuff.
Toy box mode.
I, Mayor Ham, hereby make you the Sheriff of Woody's Roundup. Congratulations.
Toy box mode is an open world, kind of like Red Dead Redemption meets Viva Pinata. You can play as Buzz, Woody, or Jesse as you take on the role of sheriff in this Wild West setting.
You take on missions like building or decorating buildings in the town, populating it with various toys, and playing various mini-games. The coolest thing is that Avalanche Studios have incorporated so many elements from Pixar's entire catalogue. Want to make a prison look like it came out of Finding Nemo? You can. You want to dress up an alien like an Incredibles character? Throw them into a shop and go for it.
Exploring the Toy Box world is incredible, and new areas open up as you complete missions like tracking down rogue cows, finding a hat for a sunburnt alien, or practicing parachuting with your toy soldiers. New toys also unlock, and you can purchase good stuff with the coins you've collected. Dare I say that you may also have as much fun riding Bullseye around as you would a horse in Red Dead Redemption.
The toy box just provides hysterical levels of fun, Hex. I can spend hours pelting things with balls, charging into them, picking toys up and drop-kicking them. And those spoof ads.
It's Bullseye! Now you can be the rootinest tootinest and cut your travel time in half by riding the fastest horse in the West. Yeehaw!
You can also play 2-player co-op in both story and toy box modes. It's great for families or having your mates around, but it could have been even better. You know, the respawn times for one take far too long. I mean, who likes sitting around doing nothing while your mates play on?
Well, I quite like that, actually. But I'm probably alone in that regard.
Right, well, I've also been playing Lego Harry Potter, and after seeing how they handle the local multiplayer in that, with a split screen if you separated that seamlessly came back together when you were side by side, it made this fixed split screen in this game seem very, well, last generation. What are your final thoughts on this one, Bindi?
Even though there were some frustrations with the story mode, the toy box mode totally made up for it, and hats off to the developers for not just putting out some mediocre movie tie-in rubbish and hoping the kids wouldn't notice. It's not perfect, but for fans of Toy Story no matter what age, this game is lots of fun. I give it 8.5 rubber chickens.
You know, I feel as if I've been ultra-critical, Bindi, but it's just because I loved these movies so much as a kid, and I feel like I really know this world and its inhabitants so well, but, you know, they didn't stuff that up. It's not groundbreaking stuff here, but you will feel a sense of wonder, especially in toy box mode. It's an 8 from me.
Good game.
So, did you guess the game for this week? It was Killer 7 for the GameCube and PS2, a bizarre action-adventure that just scraped past our censors with an MA15 rating, co-developed by Capcom and No More Heroes 2 dev Grasshopper Manufacture.
Oh, shit. There's more than 14. Those bastards are breeding.
Well, that's it for this week, and a very special thanks to Bindi for filling in while Barjo was away.
Oh, I didn't enjoy it at all, actually, but how did I do?
Well, you don't jiggle around as much as Barjo, but next week Barjo will be back with an epic E3 special, a full half hour of all the latest games, developers, and news announcements.
Yes, 3D gaming, PlayStation Move, and Natal. There is so much going on over there. I bet you Barjo has wet his pants. In fact, speaking of Barjo, I think we should just check on how he's going, don't you?
Oh, yeah, why not? Let me just enable his GPS.
So we'll just get this done and we'll go back on the teacups. Oh, hi, Bindi. Hi, Hex.
How was E3?
No, yeah, it's great. I can't talk right now, though. We're in the middle of interviewing a whole bunch of developers. See you next week. Don't forget to steam clean my chair, Hex. What a bunch of noobs.
Right, well, that should be interesting, but well, for now, Hex out.
And Bindi out. Yeah, that was great. I was wondering, just had my eye on some of the things on the studio set. Do you reckon it'd be all right for me to take something to remember?
Oh, like a memento?
Yeah.
No, go for it,
That'd be great, because the
pick anything,
power
man.
glove would be awesome. I'm really hoping we could.
Oh, actually, maybe not that. We actually,
Oh,
they're
really?
quite
Sorry.
rare now, so we
Is that okay?
quite,
Oh,
you know,
sorry.
we like having
The
that
other
one,
thing I was hoping for is the companion cube.
Well, actually, no, we're actually quite fond of that one, so maybe if you could just pick something other than...
Righto, well,
Sorry,
you tell me.
just,
I mean, I don't know.
Well, we do have this, actually. It's a copy of E.T. on the Atari 2600. We'll totally have that.
Thanks. Yeah, I've heard of that game. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I mean, enjoy. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, no worries.